For decades, people looked at Michael Jackson and thought they were seeing a mystery of fame, money, surgery, and image. They saw the child star from Gary, Indiana, become the most famous entertainer on earth. They saw the man who changed music videos forever, filled stadiums around the world, and moved like nobody before him. But they also saw something else. They saw his skin change. And because the world did not understand what was happening, the world invented its own story. For years, the question followed him everywhere. Why was his skin getting lighter? Was it choice? Was it shame? Was it cosmetic? Was it something he was hiding? People argued about it on television, in magazines, in barbershops, in living rooms, and later across the internet. But the truth was not hiding in gossip. It was hiding in biology. The real story begins much deeper than makeup, lights, or fame. It begins inside the skin, where tiny cells called melanocytes produce melanin, the pigment that gives color to skin, hair, and parts of the eyes. Most people never think about these cells. They are small, silent, and invisible to the naked eye. But when they stop working, or when the body destroys them, a person's appearance can change in a way the whole world can see. That is what vitiligo does. Vitiligo is not simply light skin. It is not a fashion decision. It is not a normal cosmetic change. It is a chronic autoimmune condition in which the immune system, the same defense system meant to protect the body, mistakenly attacks pigment-producing cells. When those melanocytes are damaged or destroyed, areas of skin lose their color. The result can be white patches, uneven pigment, sensitivity to sunlight, and sometimes pigment loss in hair or other parts of the body. This is the part most people never understood about Michael Jackson. The visible change was only the surface. The deeper event was an immune battle happening inside his body. In 1993, during his famous televised interview with Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jackson told the public he had a skin disorder that destroyed the pigmentation of his skin. He said it was something he could not help. At that moment, many people still refused to believe him. The story had already been shaped by rumor. The public had seen the change, judged the change, and created an explanation before the medical truth could catch up. But after his death in 2009, the official autopsy report included one word that changed the entire conversation: vitiligo. The Los Angeles County Coroner's report documented vitiligo and described areas of depigmentation on his body. That mattered because it moved the story out of rumor and into medical evidence. It showed that the condition he had spoken about publicly was not imaginary. It was real. And that single fact forces us to look at the Michael Jackson story differently. But the mystery does not stop with the diagnosis. The more interesting question is this: why does vitiligo happen to some people and not others? This is where DNA enters the story. One of the most important scientific details is that vitiligo is not only a skin problem. It is also a window into how the immune system decides what belongs to the body and what does not. Normally, immune cells are trained to attack viruses, bacteria, and abnormal cells. But autoimmune disease happens when that recognition system becomes confused. The target is no longer an outside invader. The target becomes part of the self. In vitiligo, the target is often the pigment system. That is why researchers studying vitiligo often find links to other autoimmune conditions. The same kinds of immune pathways that can be involved in thyroid disease, type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid problems, and other autoimmune patterns can also appear in vitiligo research. This does not mean every person with vitiligo will develop another disease. It means the condition belongs to a larger family of immune disorders, and that makes the genetics more complex than most people imagine. A major genome-wide association study did not find one dramatic mutation that explains everything. Instead, it found many risk regions, including genes related to immune regulation, programmed cell death, and melanocyte control. This is important because programmed cell death, also called apoptosis, is one of the body's normal cleanup systems. If that system is altered, or if immune signals become too aggressive, pigment cells can become vulnerable. So the story is not just that pigment disappeared. The deeper story is that cell survival, immune targeting, and genetic regulation may have collided. Another overlooked detail is that vitiligo can create a strange visual illusion for outsiders. When dark skin loses pigment in patches, the contrast can look dramatic. If makeup is used to even the tone, people may think the person is choosing a completely new color. But the patient may simply be trying to hide patchiness, not identity. That is why public judgment can become so unfair. The audience sees a finished face under studio lights. They do not see the uneven patches before makeup. They do not see the private routine. They do not see the fear of being photographed on a bad day. This is especially important in Michael Jackson's case because his career depended on image. Pop stars are not only heard, they are watched. His face was on album covers, posters, magazines, television specials, music videos, and stadium screens. He lived in an era before social media, but the pressure was still massive. A single tabloid photograph could shape public opinion for years. And this is why the DNA angle should be handled carefully. The truthful version is more fascinating than the fake one. We do not need to pretend scientists secretly decoded every part of Michael Jackson's genome. The real science is already powerful enough. His confirmed vitiligo connects his story to decades of autoimmune and genetic research. His paternal line genealogy connects his family to records that reach into slavery-era America. Both stories show that what people see on the surface is often only the last chapter of something much older and deeper. Modern genetic research shows that vitiligo is not caused by one simple gene. It is not like flipping one switch. It is more like a hidden network of risk factors. Scientists have found many regions in human DNA linked to vitiligo risk. Some of those regions involve immune regulation, some involve how cells respond to stress, some involve the survival of melanocytes themselves. In other words, the condition can emerge when a person's immune system, cellular stress response, and pigment biology line up in a dangerous way. That is what makes vitiligo so misunderstood. A person can be born with a certain genetic susceptibility, but susceptibility is not destiny. The DNA may load the gun, but other triggers may pull the trigger. Stress, inflammation, sun damage, skin injury, chemical exposure, or other immune changes may help reveal the condition in a person who is already vulnerable. This is why vitiligo can appear suddenly, spread slowly, pause, return, or behave differently from one person to another. So when people ask what was hiding in Michael Jackson's DNA, the honest answer is not that scientists found a secret Michael Jackson gene. No public scientific study has released his full genome. No serious researcher has proven a music gene, a dance gene, or a fame gene inside him. That would be false. The real answer is more human and more powerful. What was hiding behind the visible transformation was likely a genetic susceptibility to autoimmune pigment loss, a biological vulnerability that modern science now understands far better than the public did during his lifetime. And this is where the story becomes painful, because while his body was showing signs of an autoimmune condition, much of the world treated it like a scandal. Imagine having patches of skin changing across your face and body while cameras follow you every day. Imagine being one of the most photographed people alive, while your appearance is changing in a way you cannot fully control. Imagine walking into public with uneven pigmentation and knowing millions of strangers will decide what it means before you can explain it. For a regular person, vitiligo can already be emotionally heavy. It can affect confidence, social life, relationships, and identity. For Michael Jackson, it happened under the brightest lights on earth. Every change became a headline. Every photograph became evidence in the court of public opinion. Every stage appearance invited another round of speculation. This is why the medical treatment side of the story matters. When vitiligo becomes extensive, some patients do not only try to bring color back. In certain severe cases, doctors may use a medical depigmentation treatment to remove remaining patches of darker pigment, so the overall skin tone becomes more even. One known treatment is monobenzone, sold under the name Benican. The important detail is that this treatment is not described as an ordinary cosmetic bleach. It is a potent depigmenting agent used for final depigmentation in extensive vitiligo. That difference is huge. To the public, lighter skin may have looked like a simple decision, but medically, a person with widespread vitiligo may face a different problem. Patches, contrast, uneven skin, and areas that no longer match. Makeup can cover some of it, clothing can hide some of it, but the face, neck, hands, and arms are hard to hide when you are a global performer. So the question should not be, why did his skin become lighter? The better question is, what happens when a disease changes the most visible part of a person's body and the world refuses to understand it? That question is bigger than Michael Jackson. Vitiligo has existed across history, but public understanding of it remained weak for a long time. Many people confused it with burns, scars, infection, or deliberate bleaching. Some families treated it like a shameful mark. Some cultures created myths around it. Even in America, where medical information is everywhere, many people still do not understand that vitiligo is connected to the immune system and genetics. Michael Jackson's case forced millions to learn the word. Even people who mocked him were unknowingly talking about a real medical condition. His fame turned vitiligo into a public subject before the public had the education to discuss it responsibly. And the DNA story has another layer. In recent years, genetic genealogy has also been used to explore Michael Jackson's paternal ancestry. This is separate from the medical vitiligo story. It does not explain his skin condition, and it does not come from a full DNA test of Michael Jackson himself. Instead, researchers used Y-DNA testing from a living male line Jackson descendant. Y-DNA passes from father to son, so it can trace a direct paternal line through generations. That research connected the Jackson paternal line to haplogroup R-FT121435 and to a French Huguenot line in colonial South Carolina. The report linked the family story through old records, slavery-era documents, surname changes, and a shared male ancestor. For many families descended from enslaved people, this kind of research matters because slavery often broke written records, erased surnames, and hid biological connections. DNA cannot tell the whole story alone, but when combined with documents, it can reopen doors that history tried to close. This is one of the most overlooked parts of the Michael Jackson DNA discussion. People often think DNA only tells you where someone is from, but for African American families, DNA genealogy can also reveal the damage history left behind. It can show how names changed, how families were separated, how oral traditions formed, how ancestry can be more complicated than any simple label. In Michael Jackson's case, the paternal line finding does not erase his Black American identity. It does not rewrite who he was culturally. It simply shows that one direct male line in his ancestry may trace back through a complex path involving colonial South Carolina, a French Huguenot family, and the brutal realities of slavery. That is not a celebrity rumor. That is a reminder that American family history is often layered, painful, and hidden. So there are really two DNA stories here. The first is medical. The genes connected to immune function and pigment cells help explain why a condition like vitiligo can appear and transform the skin. This helps us understand the biological reality behind Michael Jackson's changing appearance. The second is genealogical. Why DNA research on a related male line descendant helps explore paternal ancestry and family history, showing how DNA can recover clues from a past where records were often incomplete or deliberately broken. Together, these stories reveal something deeper than the old headlines. The world was asking the wrong question. People kept asking, why did he change himself? But science suggests a better question. What was changing inside him before the world judged what it saw outside? That shift matters, because when you understand vitiligo, the story becomes less about vanity and more about vulnerability, less about race gossip and more about immune biology, less about a celebrity image and more about how cruelly society can treat visible difference. Michael Jackson was not the only person with vitiligo, but he may have been the most famous person ever forced to live with it publicly. And because he was already surrounded by fame, money, pressure, lawsuits, tabloids, and impossible expectations, his medical condition became part of a much larger spectacle. The world did not just watch his career, it watched his body. But bodies are not public property. A person's skin can tell a medical story that outsiders do not understand. A person's face can carry pain that cameras cannot explain. A person's DNA can hold risk factors, ancestral trails, and hidden history, but it does not give strangers the right to reduce them to a rumor. That is the lesson modern science gives us now. Vitiligo is real. It can be autoimmune. It can be connected to genetic susceptibility. It can change the skin dramatically. Extensive cases may involve medical depigmentation treatment. And Michael Jackson's autopsy confirmed that he had the condition he said he had. At the same time, DNA genealogy shows that the Jackson family story, like many American family stories, was more complicated than the public ever imagined. Beneath the superstar image was a man connected to generations of migration, slavery, survival, surnames, and hidden paternal ancestry. That is why this story is not just about Michael Jackson. It is about how quickly people judge what they do not understand. It is about how science can arrive years later and reveal that the simplest rumor was never the full truth. It is about how a visible change can have an invisible cause. And it is about how DNA does not always expose scandal. Sometimes DNA restores humanity. For decades, the world looked at Michael Jackson's skin and saw controversy. But modern research teaches us to look deeper. Beneath the makeup was a disease. Beneath the disease was an immune system. Beneath the immune system was genetic susceptibility. Beneath the celebrity was a family history shaped by America itself. So what was hiding in Michael Jackson's DNA all along? Not a secret that made him less black, not proof that he wanted to escape who he was, not a magic code that explained his talent. What was hiding there was something far more real. The biological vulnerability behind a misunderstood disease, and an ancestral trail that reached back through the hidden chapters of American history. The tragedy is that Michael Jackson told the world he had a skin disorder while he was alive, but many people only believed the evidence after he was gone. And maybe that is the most important part of the story. Sometimes science does not reveal that a person was lying. Sometimes science reveals that the world refused to listen.